And what I find so disturbing is not the treatment the children are receiving here, but the fact that the administration that created this horrific policy that basically the American people hit the American public's kind of moral gag reflex and forced this president to retreat from that policy, that because of his haphazard approach, there's not been the appropriate planning put in place with ORR, which has now responsibility for the children, to make sure that there's an expedited process to get these kids reunited with their relatives. This problem was created because this president arbitrarily used power to put in place a zero-tolerance policy that the American people revolted against. And this president showed that he could change that policy with simply the use of his own pen.
Okay, so he did that. So here's what Senator Warner's saying, all right? First of all, he never addressed the problems in this Virginia facility, which elected officials in Virginia should be accountable to. So let's go and address those and get that fixed, right? Because that's got nothing to do with Trump. And there's just not the kids of illegals in there. There's all kinds of kids in there, right? So you got a problem in your facility, you guys go fix it in Shenandoah Valley. But so what the senator said, let's break this down. Okay, what he said is, number one, the zero tolerance policy replacing catch and release, which was meant as a deterrent, the senator said that the Trump administration was caught by surprise at how many of these there would be, and they didn't really plan for where the kids would go and how they would get reunited with their parents after the paperwork was done. That's not a false statement. That's a true statement, right? The planning in this is not going to go down. It's not going to be taught at Harvard MBA school. I mean, it was very poor planning. So we can agree on that. So the senator is right with that. He said that the American people revolted. Well, they revolted because nobody likes to see kids crying on TV, just like they revolted when they were watching the Vietnam War and they started to see that unfolding, right? We didn't watch live World War I or World War II or the Korean War. They would have been the same thing, right? So I get that. He's right on that. And he also said, the president has the authority to change it, which he did with a pen, which he did. So the senator was right there. So the first three things the senator said were right. Right? And also, and I'm going to defend Warner here, right? You heard no hysteria in that clip. I mean, his words were measured. He's a Democrat. He doesn't believe the same things we do. That's okay. It's a free country. But there was no hysteria in Warner's clip. It was like matter of fact. President put in a policy. They didn't plan for it. It was a disaster. He had the power to change it. He changed it. And then what Warner said is, now what you have to do is you have to figure out how to reunite these children with their parents, expedite it as quickly as you can when you get the paperwork done and go from there. Which means, go back to your country or go back to wherever. You just can't stay here. If your asylum is not approved, you got to go through the process, and you do that by getting out of the U.S. and going through the policies that are now in place. And those that come into the country now are not going to get separated, and we got to get that done. Otherwise, we got to go back to catch and release, right? So Warner didn't criticize the policy. If you notice, he didn't criticize the deterrent policy of zero tolerance. He appropriately criticized the lack of planning for the reality of the implementation of it, which the government was not prepared to do. That's why kids are being flown 1,000 miles away into facilities they were trying to find beds. That was not good, right? And they didn't prepare the American people for this. I mean, what the president should have done, hindsight is 2020, we can all be an armchair quarterback, is he should have spent about a month preparing everybody for what was going to happen and saying over and over, this is going to be a deterrent. It was too quick. They didn't do that. Everybody was caught by surprise. So I'm defending Warner today because he's right. Everything he said in that clip is right. And let's go back to the glass of wine statement at his home in Martha Vineyard. He was at his home with his friends making a joke. I mean, you got to have some sense of humor here. He has no inside information from Mueller. There's no conspiracy. He was kidding around. Give the guy a break. There's no humor in this town. So I'm going to defend Warner because in this instance and with this clip and with that statement, Mark Warner is on target. And he was kidding in Martha's Vineyard at his house. If you can't make a joke in your own house, what the hell are we coming to in this country?